Uh, you don't have anything like what we're
10 seconds. It was rude, wasn't it? A rude awakening. Oh, well, that's a good way to wake you up. Okay, folks, we're ready.
It's the same thing as the second.
It looks like some people need a little bit more time. Looks like Katie's ready to go, though.
Because it wants to be half, it's half of the way, so it's 14.
Wait, at least this week.
I don't know, X equals 9 plus. I got 9, I got X equals 9, 1, that's the same as minus 4. So then it would be 19. So like 9, 1 is the square.
Final countdown, 10 seconds.
Yeah, so that's what this year, right?
3, 2, 1. Finish the knot. We need to continue. So I just want help with number 1, and I'm going to go over number 2. I'm not going to put that on anyone, even though did anyone get through number 2? Just out of curiosity, were you able to get through it? Okay. Thank you for getting through that. Did you all get through number 1? I hope so. Ella, can you help us with this one? Can you just kind of work it out for us?
Yes.
So 8B? Oh, so negative 10. Okay. So is this happening in your head? I'm sorry. Okay.
You're gonna have to add 25.
Okay.
The other side, so she could have done first. And then, so it's equals 24.
Okay.
So that's gonna be X, and that's gonna be minus B over 2, which is minus 5 to the power of 2 equals 24. And then you can take the square root of both sides.
Nice.
The X minus 5 is the square root of 4 times 4 square root of 3.
Oh, so 4 with 3? Let's see. So this is, so I have 4 times 6 in there, right? So the square root of 24 is 2 root 3? Is that right? And 2 root 6, excuse me. 2 root 6? No?
It's like, I don't know, I did like a tree, it's like 12 and 2, and then 6 and 2, and then 3 times 2.
Okay, 6 and 2 and 3 times 2. So we have 3 times 2 times 2 times 2. This is great. Thank you for factory. And then from there, we have the square root of this, which leaves us with. So 2 root 6. Just positive 2 root 6, or are there 2 of them? Plus or minus? Okay. Are we good with this? Thank you. Nicely done. Can you please show me on a scale of 1 to 10 how much did number 2 suck? How much did you just like despise this one? Just on a scale of 1 to 10. Okay, I'm saying, oh, 5. Yeah, 5 is pretty neutral. Okay, so I'm seeing, so you didn't love this one is what I'm looking at. Okay, but we do know that the first step is to divide by 7. Yeah, Lincoln?
Plus minus 2 6 plus 1, or is that like better, or is that like?
So this is the same thing, but I do want good form, just like punctuation and grammar. So I want that I want the real part, not the real part, sorry, the integer first. Yeah, so the biggest thing you have to realize for number 2 is we need a leading coefficient of 1. That's why we're dividing everything by 7. Maybe you did this first. Did you do 3 divided by 7? Did you do something like this? Did you work that out to decimal? Hopefully not. That would be unhelpful. 3 divided by 7 is 3/7. X, and maybe you did this next. Did you do that? I like to just jump in as quickly as possible. And then now we have to take that negative 3/7 and multiply it by 1/2. Is that difficult? So in our heads, I expect you to do that negative 3/7 multiplied by 1/2, getting us negative 3/14. And then what happens to that? Square it. Do you know what that squared is? 196. So I expect you to know what 14 squared is. I do. 13 squared is 169. 14 squared is 196. It's a nice pair. 15 squared, 225. Expect to just know these. If you don't know it, make some flashcards or Quizlet or something. Okay, so the left side could be described as what kind of an expression? It's quadratic. Perfect square trinomial. Are we okay with that? How do you know it's a perfect square? Because you just made it a perfect square. You completed the square. So now we can rewrite that as something squared. Specifically, it's going to be x minus 3/14. Right? So it's going to be just half of that. Oh my gosh. 8/7 plus 9, 196. Does that work out? Yeah, remember, this was 14 times 14. So I think this is going to be, yeah, times 28. That's ugly. Okay, but I do expect you to be able to do 28 times 8, which is equal to what, 224? Okay, and 224 plus 9. Okay, thank you. So 233, is that what I'm hearing? Okay, 196. Now, if this were a test or a quiz and you just like didn't want to deal with that, then you could put this as your right side. Yes, Katie? 3. I don't know if it simplifies because you can't, like, if you have 1/4, is that equal to 1/2? You can't just take this square root of the top and bottom. But thank you for asking. Yeah, Ella, do you have a question or do you have an answer? Okay. Next step. Take the rest should be fairly straightforward. Take the square root of both sides now that we have that perfect square on the left. X minus 3/14 equals, do you know what the square root of this is? Plus or minus, I don't know what the square root of 233 is, but I know the square root of 196 is 14. Did you get this far? If you got this far, I hope you got the next one. X is equal to 3/14 plus or minus square root of 233/14. Are we done with this problem? We're not done. Now, if there were an I here, we'd be done because we can't add their real and imaginary portion. There's no I there, so we can add these together. And luckily, our denominators are the same. Isn't that a little bit of enjoyment right there? A little happiness? A tiny bit? In the sea of yuck, there's something nice here. It has a common denominator. X is equal to 3 plus or minus square root of 233/14. Does 9 go into 233 possibly? Do you know the check to see if 9 goes into a number? What do you check with your neighbor? How do you check to see if 9 goes into a number? So we know that 9 does not go into this because, yeah, 2 plus 3 plus 3 is equal to 8. And 9 doesn't go into 8. It has to be a multiple of 9. 9 has to go into whatever that is. Like if it add up to 18, we're good to go. So like if this would have been like a 3, 3, 3, yeah, then it's worth like trying to divide out that 9. But I know that 9 is not, and why am I checking to see if 9 even goes into this? 9 is a perfect square. Does 16 go into this? Definitely not. It's odd. That would be strange. Does 25 go into it? So it's a good quick check to see if these little numbers go into it, and none of them do. So we're done with that problem. You ready to kick it up a notch? I'll take that as a yes. Just leave it there? Why would I do that to you? I care about you. I'm nice and I care about you. That's why I'm going to kick it up a notch. Oh, is it opposite day today? It might be opposite day. Today. Here we go. The moment you've all been waiting for. Page, I don't know. The page after the last page we did. Quadratic formula. Do you already know the quadratic formula? Do you sing it when you say it to yourself? Yeah, check to see your neighbor if they know quadratic formula, just out of curiosity. Okay, so what is it? What is it? Negative b? Are we good with that? Yeah, okay, cool. And do you know the song? Plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4 times ac. All over 2a, right? It's perfect. It pop goes the weasel. Okay. Now, how do we know that how do we know that formula is true? We're going to solve it. Yes, we're going to start with a quadratic equation from which I've taken away all the numbers and replaced them with arbitrary constants like this. Ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. So I have a quadratic equation here that I'm going to solve using. If I use quadratic formula, it'd be a pretty simple one step. But I'm going to pretend I don't even know the quadratic formula. So instead of using quadratic formula, I'm going to solve this by using a process we know called, I'm not sure we can factor this, completing the square, which means the first thing we have to do is, I'm gonna do 2 steps at once. Subtract the c and divide by a. What do you think? And of course, I'm going to leave a big blank spot there in order to complete the square. Okay, so we have x squared plus b over ax equals negative c over a. Yeah? Would you please check with your neighbor? What am I supposed to add to both sides? What do I add to both sides? You should be discussing. Okay, how do I do this? Divide what by 2? Multiply what by 1/2? Are we good with this? In our heads, we have this 1/2 times b over a. Does that make sense? Which is equal to b over 2a. And what do we do with that? Square it, right? That's all in your head. So I'm going to go ahead and add it to both sides. We know what b over 2a squared is. The top is B squared, the bottom is 4 A squared, but I had to add that to both sides. I don't like to start with the negative, so I'm gonna sneak it in here. I'm gonna add B squared over 4A squared right there. Should we just erase it so this looks a little bit prettier? Move that minus C over A. I'm gonna do that. So I'm add B squared over 4A squared to both sides, so that minus C over A. Will you please ask your neighbor quietly what kind of expression we have on the left side? Quietly, what kind of expression do we have on the left side of this equation? How many words am I looking for? 3 words. If you know, I'd like to hear it on the count of 3. 1, 2, 3. Did you rehearse that? Are you sure it's a perfect square trinomial? We know it's a trinomial. How do you know it's a perfect square? Because you took your destiny into your own hands, right? You made it a square. So this is going to be what squared? X plus B over 2A. Does that make sense? B over 2A. On the right side, I'd sure like to add those fractions together. So I'll multiply top and bottom by 4. Also multiply by A. So top becomes B squared minus 4A. Oh, that's sounding familiar. All over 4A squared. Could you finish this? Could you solve for A? I think you could. I'm sure you could. My belief in you is strong. Like the force. Solve for X. I wonder what it could possibly be. This will be a surprise to everyone. Did you get it? I need some help through this. Can you check in with your neighbor before I call on someone? I'm just looking for the end of this. Like, how do we get to the end? I'll be calling on someone. I appreciate the enthusiasm. I'll call on someone in 20 seconds. This person has been chosen already. Okay. If you have not yet finished discussing, please stop discussing. Haley R., can you help us? What's the next step? What's that? Oh, yeah. Do we have to solve for A? Is that what we're doing? What are we solving for? Solving for X. So what's the next step? Okay. Well, what are you doing to both sides? You're taking the square root of both sides. So when we take the square roots, is it just one square root or are there two? Two. So we start with plus or minus. Okay. Are we comfortable with that? It simplifies to 2A. Nice. Are you comfortable continuing? What am I starting with? I'm sorry, X equals So B, where did the B come from? And how did you move it to the other side? Okay, so X equals. I'm gonna jump in here if you don't mind. And it looks like you're doing two steps in one, which I appreciate. It's fine. But is that a reasonable next step? And then you notice, of course, its denominators are the same, so it results in exactly what you said. X is equal to negative b plus or minus the square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Haley, thank you for your help. That was really nice. Any questions? Have you seen that before? That derivation of it? Mathematicians in general really like to complete the square, but recognize that as you saw in number 2 here, completing the square there really sucked. Wouldn't have been just nice to go from here to there using quadratic formula. So there are times when it's helpful to use and sometimes when it's not necessarily helpful. So quadratic formula is now officially a tool I need you to know. And it's just this. If we have an equation, a quadratic equation, then x is equal to this. I'll put that in a box so you can put that all together. Any questions? Oh, look at that. 4 problems for you to do. I'll give you a moment to work through them. Please do not complete the square, no matter how badly you want to for these. I will be calling on 4 people, or Destiny will be calling on 4 people to help with that. Check in with your neighbor as you finish each one. Just make sure that calculations are going well.
Was
it check?
It's like 3 over 6. 3 over 7. Or it was like when it was like 3 over 14 squares. After it got to at least 14 7. It's like those little things stuff. It's like after like gives you
We're about ready? You want to be? Okay, then that's not quite ready yet. Are you completing the square for each one of these? I hope not.
So you can use this. Yeah. Is that true? It's minus negative four.
About ready? Give me 20 seconds. Do what you can do.
One 20, so that's 11. Wait, how did that? It's just. Yeah.
Okay, finish up whatever you're working on. Okay. Kyson, can you just tell us your answer for A, please?
1/4 and -1.
1/4 and -1/2. Are we okay with that, everyone? Of course, it should be with this x equals, right? X equals that. Should we go through that at all? The fact that the answers are so clean like this means that we could have solved it using factoring. We could have factored it straight away. And in my head, I'm thinking, what two numbers multiply to be -8 and add to 2? Since there's an answer to that, we could have factored it. So, but the point here is practice. And there are two answers. Kyson, thank you for your help. Kara, did you get B?
Yes.
What'd you get?
5 and 1/2.
-5 and 1/2. So two different answers like this. Are we good? Don't forget to include x equals. I don't want just the numbers. You're solving something, so I want to know x equals. Remember, quadratic formula actually is x equals -b plus or minus blah, blah, blah. Please don't forget that. Would I take off a point for that? Yeah. If you do it every problem, I won't take off a point for every problem, but please just be careful. Oh, the fact that we have clean answers like this means we could have solved it by factoring. In fact, maybe we could backwards engineer it. The fact that -5 is one of the answers means that we could factor this. X plus 5 would have been the other answer. Does that make sense? And this
2x.
2x. Does that make sense? We could kind of backwards engineer from there. And does that work out? Do we have the 9x and the -5 and the 2x squared is all there? It is there. It was just kind of interesting, but not necessary to do yet. This is all I'm looking for. Foreshadowing. Dun, dun, dun. C. C for Chloe. Chloe, did you get this one yet? Okay, let's talk through it together then. How far did you get? Plus or minus root 12, you said? All over 4 or just root 12? Okay. Do we agree? Let's not forget to include x equals. So Chloe, you're at the door. You have the answer. We just have to simplify. So square root of 12 breaks up into 2 root 3. So So we get 2, 3 all over 4. Now am I done? Oh, yeah, we could simplify a little bit more. So Chloe, what does that work out to be? And we say 1 root 3, I think you mean just root 3, correct? Okay. Are we good with that? Any questions? Chloe, that was nicely done. Thank you. May, did you finish number 3? And D, excuse me. Okay, what'd you get?
I'm just gonna put an I there, so I put an I there,
Okay, I like it.
but, yeah, okay. So if you do the thing, you get, yeah, you get,
Do the thing, yes.
the square root of 4 minus 48 over 6.
What's under the square root? What's under the square root? 4 minus 48. Okay. I see what you're doing. Okay. So you're taking us back. I like it. Thank you. Yeah, this one is a little bit different. All over 6, you said? Okay.
You can count it as like an imaginary number, or if you just want to be extraneous. So if you're going for imaginary number, you do 2 plus or minus 2i root 11 over 6 and 5.
I'm sorry to bother you and to interrupt. Should we go into imaginary territory? Would that be acceptable? Yeah, definitely. So what do we get from here?
2 plus or minus 2i root 6. And you simplify that dividing by 2 to 1 plus or minus I root 11.
1 plus or minus I root 11 over 3. Do we agree? Don't forget. What's missing? X equals this. Any questions? Yes, Jojo. Yes, we have an imaginary number here. So instead of having an imaginary divided by a number, let's split it and just make it or 2 imaginary numbers. In other words, the answer I'm looking for is 1/3 plus or minus root 11 over 3i, maybe something like that. If you want to put the I to the left, that's fine. In other words, if you want to put the I here, that's okay. Although that's a little bit strange. Yeah, but if I is involved, it's an imaginary number. I want it in standard complex number form. Yeah? All right. I'm going to power through this and then just give you a couple minutes before we start our quiz. The discriminant is information seeking. It doesn't solve anything for you. It's seeking information. Discriminant tells you. Do you remember what it tells you? I'm sure you saw this in Algebra 1, but it was a while ago. Ella? Nice. The number and type, very nice, and type of solutions to a quadratic equation. X equals negative b. So here's a quadratic formula. That plus or minus means we'll very often have 2 solutions. Does that make sense? 2 solutions? Almost always 2 solutions, except in the case where there's only 1 solution. Where if that whole square root is equal to 0. Does that make sense? Plus 0 minus 0 doesn't give you 2 different numbers. So there's either 2 solutions or 1 solution. And sometimes that solution will be imaginary and sometimes it will be real. The thing that determines this information is the content of the radical. The content of the radical is called the discriminant. And normally that is referred to in this class and other places as D, capital D. And D is equal to B squared minus 4AC. Please do not include the radical with the discriminant. It is not part of it. Discriminant is just B squared minus 4AC. If the discriminant is greater than 0, that means there are two. How do we know they're real? They're taking the square root of a positive number. Then there are two real solutions. If D is equal to 0, then there is one real solution. Does it have to be real or could it be imaginary? It's definitely real. Imaginary comes from under the radical, so it's definitely real. If D is less than or equal to 0, right, the contents of the radical are negative, that means we have, then there are two I say complex solutions with imaginary parts. To be perfectly specific, complex solutions. If you want to say imaginary solutions, that's fine. With imaginary parts. So when I do 3a, all I care about is that D equals B squared minus 4AC. B is equal to 4 squared. Sorry, B is equal to 4. 3 times negative 5. Now it does say to compute the discriminant, but do I actually need to compute it to know how many solutions we have? Do you see that this is very definitely greater than 0? 16 plus 180, is that right? I did 20 times 3. Oh, that's 60, excuse me. 20 times 3 is 60. This is greater than 0. What do these 3 dots mean? Therefore, 2 real solutions. Any questions? Okay. I'm going to stop there. I'll let you do those on your own if you like. I'd like to get started with the quiz at 10:18. So I'll go ahead and pass it out and give you a couple minutes to stretch if you need to.